what would happen if I believed in myself? I just have told myself, I'm like, no amount of money is worth my mental health.
Do it right now when your expenses are so low, you're in a good place.
This is going to make me better. This is going to make me stronger. This is going to give me something.
And at the end of the day, you can't please everybody.
Today we're talking about when the right time to leave a job, like the corporate 9-to-5 world, like your full-time income or your full-time job of working 40 hours a week. I got my buddy Brandon here again with me today, who was able to leave his job to do FBA, and he had a solid source of income, and I'll let you guys hear a little bit about what he has to say here in a second. And then there was myself when I took the leap, where I have no extra income. I have nothing else. I have no source of income right now or any clients, and both of us have different perspectives and ways of being able to view those types of times when it is ready to move on. So we'll hear from Brandon to figure out what made him want to finally make that jump, and then we'll listen to myself as well and kind of see what we can get from there.
Sounds good. Okay, so
Brandon?
starting with myself, I created my business about 4.5 years ago. So, and from the time I created it to the time I sort of left my 9-to-5, it was about 4.5 years. So I stayed in it a bit longer. I just wanted to make sure everything was set, or most things that I have control of were set in terms of financially, making sure I'm in a good place in terms of having emergency fund set up, vacation fund set up, having investments in a decent place before I actually took the 9-to-5 plunge. And a big thing people don't really think about is healthcare. When you leave a traditional 9-to-5 job, what are you going to do with healthcare? And if you can get on Cobra for a while and then other programs, but it tends to be pretty expensive. In my research, anywhere from $700 to $1,200 or maybe even more per month. And that's just an individual. Now, say if you have a family that you have to take care of, maybe a wife and she doesn't work, or a child, that can go up a lot more in terms of the monthly cost. So I just wanted to make sure that everything was actually intact and I was in a comfortable place before I took the plunge. And I know, Caleb, you mentioned that you maybe necessarily didn't have, like, it wasn't perfect in your situation or in your eyes. So I was just curious, like, what your thought process was there.
Yeah, so I view things a little bit different from Brandon, obviously. Like, I look at it more in terms of I'm just going to kind of have faith and trust that things are going to work out, because everything at the end of the day, from my personal experiences, has always brought me to the place to where I needed to get to. And I'm the type of guy that I have to go all in or not at all. Like, if I don't give everything that I have, like, it's not going to work out in the ways that I want it to. Plus, if I'm going to be somebody that's, say, telling people to chase their dreams and trying to be an inspiration to somebody and trying to get somebody to act upon something that they want to do, and I can't do that myself, it kind of removes that aspect and that credibility that I would have to be able to get somebody to, say, start the business, go talk to the girl, start a conversation with a stranger, start making YouTube videos, whatever it may be. If I didn't do that myself, then how can I be somebody that's like, hey, you should go do this? It's kind of like lifting weights. I look at it that way. I would rather hire somebody that has years of training and looks the way that I want to look, compared to somebody that's just read textbook after textbook after textbook. So that's kind of been my different approach. And like Brandon was saying, with the Cobra and the health insurance, I was thinking about that as well. And I was like, I'm healthy. I don't really have to go to the doctor. Like, I haven't gone to the doctor for like 6 years. I went to one physical last year just because, like, I needed to. And if I ever get to
usually one a
like
year
health clinic. Yeah. So that's never really been a big concern for me. And I figure, like, faith is like a big thing, and I think everybody needs to have faith. I don't know where Brandon stands on that side. But I was talking with somebody else the other day too, and it's just like, if we have that faith or that perspective, it kind of shifts everything in our own favor and almost puts things, like, I'll say, in God's hands, universe's hands, cosmic hands, however you want to look at it. And it just kind of allows us to follow our intuition. So that's how I was able to move forward and actually go into doing this. Plus, I was just very unhappy at my corporate job, and I was like, it's time for me to make a change. And now is, I feel like, the best time to make a change.
Yeah, and I think that we touched on this before. If you're unhappy with where you're at, your corporate job, your 9-to-5, whatever, it makes it that much easier, in my opinion, to actually make the move to leave. Because imagine you're really comfortable, you're making the money you want to make, and everything's sort of easy, and you get sort of complacent. It's much harder to go ahead and make that move just because you're a little too comfortable. So if you're uncomfortable, you kind of don't have to hate your job or where you're at, but if you just really wish you were somewhere else, it's a little bit easier to leave. And back on to what you were saying in terms of, hey, you have a service-based business, right? So you need to play the part and like be that person for your potential clients. Whereas I'm in, kind of business for myself. It's just e-commerce. It's products, right? Physical products. So I'm not necessarily selling myself as much as I'm selling physical products. Whereas you in your business, you're selling yourself. So you have to be that person you're teaching others to be.
Exactly. Yeah. If I wasn't the person that I was teaching somebody else to be, then I'd feel like a fraud essentially. Whereas like you have a digital product, or you have a physical product that you're selling, so you don't necessarily, you could do that on the side a little bit more because you had the money to invest, you had the time to spend to be able to go buy the products, go drop them off at the Amazon fulfillment warehouse. Whereas myself, it's like, you want to learn how to get more women, you want to learn how to have more confidence within yourself, you want to learn how to meditate, like you want to learn how to have peace of mind. I had to do that myself. And I couldn't be somebody that's selling a service. At least this is just my take on things. I wouldn't hire somebody that isn't doing what I want to be doing myself. And that's why I like having conversations. Yeah,
and it's the same thing when you're buying courses from people, right? When you talked about this last time, you're not going to buy a course from someone who isn't actually actively doing what you're trying to do in terms of the business you're trying to run. So it goes hand in hand with that as well.
Yeah, and the more business, the more influence, the more I feel like experiences that one has, the more credible somebody becomes at talking about said thing. So you are very, you can talk about FBA, everything about selling online, where I have no expertise in that. So I can't really talk that much on it. But what I do know is I understand how to quiet my mind. I understand how to take the risk. I understand how to have the faith, and I understand how just to kind of put in the work and take that first step. Just as yourself as well, I think have done it in different ways, and I don't think that I don't think one way is better than the other. I think that the way that you did it worked very well for you, and then the way that I'm doing it has worked very well for me.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of it is you can be so different from someone, and everyone's in a different place. Literally everyone's in a different place. That's why it's sometimes hard to give advice to people, right? Because just because this way of doing things is good for you doesn't mean it's going to be good for someone else, right? For example, if you want to start out a business where you need a lot of money to do so, and you're someone who doesn't have a lot of money and can't take that risk because they have to go ahead and support their family. Maybe they have a wife or husband or, and kids and all that, or a sick parent, and they really just can't take that maybe extra, what I'd call it, 10, 20,000 to go and start a business just because even though they wish they could, they can't. So they're in a different place, and they can still be successful in a different type of business, but maybe not the exact business you're in that takes a certain amount of capital at that time. So that's the beauty of it, is everyone's different, and there's no one right way to do things.
No, I think the right way to do something is doing what feels right for yourself. And the way that I've been able to figure that out is through trial and error. What works for me, and then if this works for me, awesome. And there's always going to be people that are going to be like, oh, you shouldn't do this or you should do that. Facebook groups is a way to make money. You should message people on Discord. You should do FBA. You should do service-based. You should do
arbitrage, going into, physical brick and mortar stores. And I mean, hey, that's another perfect example. Some people, to get the money to go ahead and start FBA, Amazon FBA, they have to go do arbitrage, meaning going into Walmart, Target, Ulta, scanning products literally on their phone to then build up that capital of a few $1,000s, however long that takes them, to then go ahead and make and place their first order online. And that's the beauty of it. You don't have to have money right now. You can go out and do things like arbitrage. You can go out and do things like Gary Vee says, the garage sale stuff, right, and start flipping products. So you don't necessarily have to be in a place where like, hey, I have this money right now, so I can go ahead and do this. You don't have to do that. You can go ahead and get the money. It's going to take a little bit more work and a little bit more time. But again, like that's a perfect example is two people in completely different scenarios can get to the same place. One just might take a little bit longer, you know?
Exactly. Yeah, and that's I think the great part, and I think this is where a lot of people fail, and at least this is where I failed in the past too. Is like I would try one thing for a little while, like I tried doing FBA, or I tried doing drop shipping, or print on demand, or I tried to do all these different businesses, and I wouldn't see the money that I would see that everybody was making online. It's like you'd see these videos of like, oh, I made $10,000 by doing drop shipping,
Yeah.
and we don't see the years of experience that that person had,
Or the failed products.
to that point.
Yeah.
Exactly, and we just see the finished successful product, and that's
Correct.
something
And
that's
giving time, right? Giving time for things. Because a lot of people, like you mentioned, will go from thing to thing to thing. You know, it might be Amazon FBA to drop shipping to, you know, trying to sell an online course or whatever, but they don't put in enough time, right? Things that are really great tend to take time, and usually there's going to be failure along the way. And I think breaking through that failure is where a lot of people get hung up on, like you said, not seeing that initial money coming through usually.
Yeah, and I can look at it in terms of like going to the gym. Like when we first start lifting or working out, it's like, oh, I want to be benching 225, or I want to be lifting the weight that the big guy's at. But it's like we don't see the years and decades that they spent to be able to get to that point. We just see the finished product. And I've started to realize that like when I first started lifting when I was in my early 20s, I was like, how are these people doing this? Then as I go
Yeah.
every single day and I work out, it starts to build the body that I want to. And I look at it also as in nature too, is like you got to plant the seed first. As you plant the seed, then the tree is going to start to grow into something bigger. If that seed was dug up and moved over every single time, then there would never be something successful. There would never be that business.
You don't
that is
give enough
actually
time.
working. Exactly.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think you can tell a lot about someone's body, right? Someone's physique. Because if you have a good physique, and good is different to everyone, but it shows that you have discipline, right? You have motivation, and you're willing to put in, and you have consistency. You're willing to put in the time to do something over an extended period of time, usually typically years, right? And so that can translate into business as well. If you have a great body, you can automatically tell that that person has a ton of great qualities that can then transfer to business to help build an asset such as a business, not a body. I guess you could think about it like your body's a business in a way, and those characteristics you take to build that business can help you in other areas.
Yeah, and how you do one thing is how you do everything. At least that's how I view the world.
Yeah, I
Like
agree.
if my body's good, then my business should be good. It's funny because like I've seen other people that aren't in great shape and yet they have $10 million businesses or they have $1 billion businesses. And I'm like, so it's not necessarily like the body. I think a lot of it comes down to one's internal belief of oneself that they can
The
do this.
mind, I mean, over the
Exactly.
body. I'm just saying, like physically, if someone is in really good shape, they have some of the pillar qualities to that could be good for building a business. You know, like the discipline and all that, and just consistency.
Yeah.
But I think it's really the mind, though. I really do. I think it's the mind over the body, and that's why you see people like look at Elon Musk. I think that picture came out where he was on a yacht with some other people, and he just looks almost like an alien. He's like this really pale, you know, like a not very in shape guy, but he's the richest guy in the world. Right. And then you have someone like Jeff Bezos. He's actually usually in pretty great shape. So I think it's Elon's in a different place than Jeff Bezos in terms of all the companies that he's trying to really be successful in, which he is, but they value, I think, different things. So you don't necessarily, to your point, have to have a great body, but it just shows like some of the qualities that you have, and people can instantly see that. But I do think it's more the mind.
Yeah, the body and the mind, I think, work together, and you kind of have to go beyond the mind to be able to, I think, accomplish some of the things that we accomplish in business and really any sort of endeavor. It's just I had to take the steps by working on the body first to kind of have the mind come in, like in into place to where I needed it to, because I didn't believe that I could do something like this. Whereas I feel like Brandon has always had like the belief that he's like, okay, I'm gonna start an FBA business, like I'm gonna make it happen, like I'm gonna figure it out. Whereas like my belief in myself hasn't always been as strong because of other things that have happened to me, like just other conversations that I've had with people that have kind of like told me that I'm thinking too big, or I'm not thinking like I should think smaller, or you can't do this or you can't do that. But it's just like, if somebody else has done it, like Musk or Bezos or somebody like that, then why can't I?
Yeah, you don't even have to go that far. There's people who are living great lives, balling out, in their eyes, making even 30,000 a month, and there's a lot of people making 100, 250,000 a month, 500,000 a month, nowhere near Bezos or Elon Musk, and they're living their best life. So there's definitely there's levels to things, and you don't need to be the richest person in the world to find fulfillment or be happy, because a lot of rich people, you'll see this anywhere, they're not necessarily happy, right? Money, just like the cliche, it can't buy you happiness, and there's a lot of wealthy people who are really depressed.
Yeah, and I've started to realize like money's great because it allows for us to have freedom. It allows for us to do the things that we want to do, and I think that should be what money is really there for. But money's not going to solve the holes that you have broken inside of you.
No.
Like I always thought that it's like, okay, I make $10,000 a month, everything's going to be fixed. It's like, not so much. It's like you need almost something. You need to find happiness within yourself. At least that's kind of how I've looked at it.
Yeah.
And then just do things that make you happy. Like I enjoy lifting, I enjoy meditating, I enjoy doing conversations like this, doing yoga, reading. Like I enjoy those things. And I think we all need to have that type of balance to find happiness.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's really all about balance, right? Like, yes, you do need money to take care of your typical necessities, housing, food, entertainment, stuff like that. But beyond that, yeah, you also need money for investing, right? If you want to invest for your retirement or future, you need money for that. But once you get to a certain point, and that certain point of money coming in per month is different for everyone. My expenses are super low, so I don't need as much money because I'm as someone per month to live on, right? Whereas someone else might have a mortgage that's $4,000 a month. They might have a car payment that's $800 a month. Some people might be divorced, have those two things, and have to pay child support on top of that. All those things adding up means that person can take less risk and with what they want to do, which kind of keeps them probably in the place they're in that job that they're in, and their lifestyle is just so much more expensive than mine. That's why I've built my life to up until this point to not really take a lot of money to live. I live in a modest house, I have a modest car, and most of my income is saved. And I think that this is a big thing. The biggest things that take up people's income is their housing, their roof or rent, and then their car, right? So, and I think you can assign percentages to things, and like what is based on your income monthly, what is your housing percentage? What is your car percentage? For me, my house that I have that I bought in 2020 is 10% of my take-home pay, right? And they say that it should be anywhere from, 20-25% your housing, but like that just shows you how much lower I'm able to live on for my expenses. And my car is essentially almost paid off. And I got it at 2.3% interest rate, so I shouldn't even really pay it off, in my opinion.
No, like if I were you, I wouldn't even pay it off at that point. Like you might as well just keep making the monthly payments. And I feel like that's where a lot of people start to, I want to say, stay broke or stay poor. Like they can be making $400,000 a year, and yet their expenses are $390,000. Exactly.
And they're spending $350. Correct.
So it's like having that frugal life almost seems like it gives us more freedom. Like you and I living well below our means. Mm-hmm. Like when I started making more money, I did upgrade my housing, which that was something that I needed to do because I needed to get my own roof over my head. But like my food and other expenses, like I didn't all of a sudden start going out and buying all these dumb things because I was like, oh, I have all this extra money. Like I was like, let's keep the living expenses low, keep saving 10 to 20% of my income each month, investing at least $200 to $400 a month, and have it auto invested, so I don't even have to worry about it each and every single time.
Yeah.
Because it's like when we're younger, I feel like we have much more opportunities to grow our wealth and put the money where
We
it
do.
needs to be.
Compounding interest is your biggest friend, essentially.
Exactly. And that's why, like, I wear the same clothes pretty much every single day. I try to keep it simple. I try not to go out and buy extravagant things because, I don't know, those things don't really buy me happiness. I'd rather be able to go out and have conversations like this and enjoy what I do every single day, which I think a lot of people don't have that luxury as you and I do, which is
and I would say I'm way more happy now with the house that I have, the car that I have, and like everything that I have in my life, and essentially the freedom, right? To be able to quit my 9 to 5 and still live the same lifestyle. Imagine if I went ahead and, yes, of course, I could go ahead and upgrade my house and pay double or triple what I'm paying currently. And yes, I could go out and pay double or triple for a car and take out a huge loan, but then that puts constraint on my freedom and my time. To whereas now I've set it up, since my expenses are so low, I have way more freedom to go ahead and take risks and go ahead and dive headfirst into my business and not need to worry essentially about paying my bills, right? Because that's really, I feel like, what keeps people at their 9 to 5s and keeps people unhappy is the need to just keep up with their bills that they have, whether it's their housing, their cars, their personal loans they take out, etc.
Yeah, and I feel like those people that are buying those things and can't keep up with their bills is because they're trying to impress other people that don't actually even matter to them.
That's another big thing, right? It's just trying to impress other people who literally don't care or don't even know you. And that somehow makes people feel good inside. Whereas most of those people are pretty broken and feel pretty empty, but they portray this certain type of facade on the outside to make you think that they're truly happy.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, and I don't think it's all people. I think it's some people. Like, some people are probably like they're buying the nice clothes, driving the nice car, whatever it may be. Is like they might be happy, but they also might not be happy. Like it's hard.
You don't know unless you truly actually know them. You don't know. That's why the way someone looks on the outside isn't always how they feel on the inside.
And that's where I think social media and like a lot of people that we listen to online can kind of warp our perception of what happiness is or what we actually truly want in life. Because it's like, are these people, like, they're projecting, like everybody's projecting what they think that the other person should do. And at the end of the day, I think we have to make our own decision of what we want to do with our lives. So like me leaving my job was a decision that I felt like I needed to do because I had experienced and had other things happen to me in ways that I didn't originally like believe. And then once I started seeing them, I was like, okay, my belief has been broken. And breaking those beliefs by trying and doing something incredibly challenging has been able to progress me in more ways than I possibly could ever even imagine.
Yeah. And talking about challenging, I wanted to go into like, hey, what was it like to, first of all, have the idea of, okay, I am going to go ahead and put in my 2 weeks. I don't even know if you gave your 2 weeks. I gave my 2 weeks when I quit my job, right? I was like, hey, I have all these accounts, some of these bigger accounts. I'm not just going to drop the ball right now and like leave you and say, peace out, right? I'm not going to do that. I'm going to give you the 2 weeks. Did you give your 2 weeks to your work?
Yeah, so I did give my 2 weeks. And the big reason for me giving my 2 weeks was because I was doing sales before this. And a big proponent of sales is having a belief. If you don't believe in the product that you're selling, like,
true,
you're not going to sell it. So like the belief is the biggest aspect. Like I wasn't like, I get ACH and I get the payments and I get the things that I was selling and I believed in it. And then something shifted where it's like, I don't believe in this anymore. And as soon as that happened, like my numbers just decreased. And I was like, well, this isn't going to work for me. So I was like, if I believed in this other company so much, what would happen if I believed in myself? How far do I think I could actually go? And that's where I've kind of had that mental shift. And like I did give 2 weeks. I didn't really have to give 2 weeks. I probably could have just been like, all right, I'm done. Because those last 2 weeks, like I did the work and I worked and I tried to close deals. I made the phone calls. It's just my heart wasn't in it as much as it once was. And if our heart isn't in it, I don't think that there's going to be any amount of success.
Yeah, especially in sales.
Yeah, like sales is different from what Brandon was doing, like with email marketing. I don't think he needed to have as much heart into it. Like, I mean,
No,
maybe he
but to,
did.
to do good work, yeah, you need to have a vested interest in it and you need to really care about your client. But no, you don't need, I feel, as much motivation and belief in yourself as you do when you're doing, brutal stuff like cold call sales. I did cold call sales and I believe that's what you were doing as well. I mean, the leads, some might be warmer than others, but at the end of the day, you're probably still calling cold leads that have maybe never been contacted by your company, and it's brutal. So I think that, yeah, in sales, you definitely have to have way more belief in yourself and kind of keep that positive attitude up to do well and succeed.
Yeah, positivity is probably the biggest thing, and that's where I believe I've been able to find a lot of success in what I do.
Sure.
Is because I always look from the like to find positive in the darkest of moments. Like no matter how bad it may seem, it's like, well, crap. Like I'm stuck out in the middle of this road on my bike, and I have no water. I'm freezing to death, and I could be like, this is miserable. But I look at it as like, this is gonna make me better. This is gonna make me stronger. This is gonna give me something that'll teach me something a little bit later. The positive mindset, like in selling and business and life in general, is something that I pride myself on. Like having
Yeah.
the ability just to kind of switch any negative moment and be positive. And people have told me that too. They're like, dude, how do you do this? And I'm like, it's who I am. It's what I know
It's
how
a
to do.
skill though. It truly is a skill that you seem to possess, and a lot of people don't possess it. But just because they don't possess the skill of believing in yourself doesn't mean you can't build it up. You mentioned yourself that you were maybe at a lower place and you had to build that skill up over many years even to get to that place. And some people might be in a place where they're super cocky or confident or arrogant, but that's not a good place to be either, right? You have to have some humbleness to your belief in yourself as well.
Yeah. And I think people mix confidence and arrogance a lot of the
Yeah,
times,
cockiness. Yeah.
and cockiness as well. Like it's a fine line because like people have told me that I'm arrogant. I look at it more as like I'm confident. Like I just have a belief in myself that I can do this because I've been able to do it time and time again. So like
Yeah.
I genuinely know it's like I've been able to make these numbers. I've been able to have these conversations. So I have that conviction, that confidence within myself. I also do think that there does need to be a slight bit of arrogance for one to be able to succeed,
Sure.
like before you actually get to that level, because if you don't believe in yourself, who else is going to believe in you? Like that's the biggest thing. And confidence is it's tough because some people will look at me and be like, oh, he's arrogant, but then other people will look at me and be like, oh, he's confident.
It
So it's
depends
like,
who that person is inside. I think that what they take from others in terms of their personality. Do I think that you're like really cocky? No. Do I think that you're confident and you're sure of yourself? Yes. But someone who may be in a very low place may be projecting and like getting that back from you that you're cocky. So I think that it really depends on the person, and at the end of the day, you can't please everybody.
no, and that's something I used to do, as Brandon can attest to this. Like I've tried to reach everybody. I've tried to be like, okay, I need to help you. I need to help you. I need to help you. And I've started to realize like, let me just help the right people. Like let me just help people like men ages 18 to 24 that are struggling with confidence, that are struggling with women, that are struggling with communication. Like let me help those people because those are
Yeah.
the ones where I started out. Like I didn't know what I was doing. Like I was watching hours of anime, playing video games all night, and like had no direction or purpose in life. And then I stumbled upon personal development, and I stumbled upon like growth, and I was like, huh, there's this whole different world that I never actually truly understood existed. And after seeing it, it's like I can't go back to how I once was. So it's, as Brandon was saying, it's like it's a skill that can be acquired like any muscle. Like the mind
Yeah.
can grow, you just kind of have to put oneself in situations that allow for you to grow. Like my ability to be able to get to where I've been at is because I go out and I have conversations with strangers. I push myself beyond what I thought I could possibly do, and it becomes stronger. There's an idea in psychology where it's like it's exposure therapy essentially. So if you're afraid of something, you might as well expose yourself to said fear, and then you become braver, so the next time you have that same fear or something similar, you're stronger than you were beforehand.
Yeah, and it's really just breaking out of one's comfort zone, right? Because if you stay in the same place that you're comfortable in, you've always stayed in, really you can't expect much to change. And I think that's the downfall of a lot of people. They want all this change, they want all this growth, but yet they don't do anything or experience new things or hang out with different groups of people to then invite that newness in, that then creates different opportunity, right? So I think that people need to get out of their comfort zone, and of course it's easier said than done though.
Yeah, because a lot of people I think have friends that they've been friends with since middle school, high school, elementary school, and like they're the best friends. And I have a different relationship with friends and people that come into my life, because I'm like, if you guys aren't going to the same place that I am, like I still wish you well. I still want you to do the best that you possibly can. I just, if you're gonna hold me back, I'm gonna be like, I'm sorry, dude. Like I love you. I appreciate everything that you've given to me. It's just I got bigger things that I want to do. I'm happy to bring you along with me. It's just like if you aren't growing, I'm not going to be there. And I don't think a lot of people have the ability to let those friends go, because I think they might be worried that they won't be able to find new friends. They won't be able to find other people that are similar to them or want to grow with them, because a lot of people, I've started to realize, become somewhat envious of people that do take that leap, that do take that jump. Like they want that security for them.
Yeah, because it essentially lights something within themselves to be like, hey, I'm not in the place that I want to be, so therefore I want to try to bring this guy or girl down to my level. And that's honestly, people do it subconsciously without even knowing that they're doing that, bringing that negative mindset and not even realizing like, hey, I'm here, this person's going here or already here and going higher. I want to feel better about myself, so I want to bring them down closer to my level, and that's where the resentment comes from, I believe.
Yeah, and that's why I've always been the person where I'm like you've always been here for me, and I've always been here. So
I appreciate that.
Of course, I've always been trying to like catch up to Brandon. So it's like that's where I look at it. I'm not like, let me bring him down to my level. Let's figure out how I can get up to his level.
So or surpass, right? Because I mean, I'm not even even though I'm in a great place and I'm somewhat happy with what I've achieved so far, I know that I'm way below where I want to be and way below where I can be. There's so many people doing so much better, but again, I'm very grateful for the spot I'm in, but that doesn't mean I can't aim for much, much higher and believe that I know that I can get there, because all the signs are very clear around me that it's very, very doable to get to where I want to be, way off the screen. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, we're all at least I'd like to believe, and I used to believe that everybody was trying to be like way off the screen like you and I are. And I've started to realize that that's not everybody.
No.
Like I was on the run with a guy the other day, and typically what I would do on my runs, or when I was with other people, like I try to stay with them for a certain period of time, like so that like I wasn't going well beyond like where they were at.
Yeah.
This time I decided
to not make them feel bad about their physical performance.
Exactly. But this guy, he was like, you humbled me. Like you taught me, like I still have a lot of room to grow. And I was like, I never really thought about it that way. It's like I look at somebody and it shows me how much more room and places that I have to go. And that's why I've always liked the quote where it's like the best type of revenge is massive amounts of success. So when I find somebody that's doing better than me, like I'll just find a way to be able to get closer to their level. And then once I'm at their level, who's above them? And then I go above them. And I've just always kind of liked that way of viewing things. It's not for everybody, but that's just kind of where I found a lot of my success. And that's why I think I've been able to be good at sales, is because like I do have that driving factor to want to be number one. I don't know where it comes from. Still trying to figure that out, but I like to be number one.
Yeah. And not everyone can be a high achiever. Not everyone's built mindset wise to be a high achiever, and that's fine. That's why there's so many different types of people in this world, and we need people to be in certain places, right? There might be someone who has very high aspirations and they want to build a huge company that employs a whole bunch of different types of people. If everyone had that mindset, there wouldn't be people to do different types of work for that business owner. And that's not necessarily poo-pooing those people who are employees. That's fine. They're comfortable. They can support their lifestyle. They can take care of their family, but not everyone's built to be an entrepreneur. And we have to understand that that's okay. You don't have to strive to be an entrepreneur. So there's so many people who can retire and lead such great lives just working for someone else.
Exactly. And that works for a lot of other people. You
Yeah,
just
there's
sent me
nothing
a
wrong
video
with that.
no, it's just the video you sent me the other day of this guy that was, I think 68 or something like that, 70, was retired, lost his whole
Yeah,
pension, now he's a greeter at Walmart. So like that's the
correct.
fear that I have in the back of my mind. Whereas if I don't create something, I could be the dude
Now,
that's at Walmart. Yeah. So
correct, and that's what his biggest regret was. So in that story, he was working for this company essentially almost the majority of his working life, 35 years, I believe. And one day, everyone in the company got a note or an email that said, "Hey, we're shutting our doors in 1 week," and that's it. And he was 2 weeks away from being able to collect his pension for this company, being at this company for 35 plus years, and he lost that pension. So he was relying on that pension to get him through his later years in life. And because that company closed down and he missed the timing of being able to collect on that by 2 weeks, then he had to go back to work. And yeah, he's a greeter at Walmart because he can't afford to live his current lifestyle, which was super sad to see. But this happens every day to people.
yeah, and we just don't always hear the stories of that happening
No.
to everybody. And that's why I like the digital era where we can do things like this. We can have podcasts, we can have experiences, like we can share everything online and
And
it
learn
can
from
grow
other
into something
people's
big.
regrets, mistakes, right? And not everything's a
Exactly.
mistake, but just like regrets of how to do things differently to set yourself up to be in a different place. And another thing that he mentioned was, hey, I wish I would have set myself up better in my early years to then lead a much better life in retirement. And that was one of the regrets that he had. Yes, if his job, if his place of work would have, kept on being an actual company, he could have collected his pension and all that. He would have been in an okay place. But he really said like, hey, I wish I would have done things differently. And he probably by that meant, I wish I would have invested more, saved more money, made better financial decisions to then set myself up for a way better retirement. So it's good to be able to learn from people like that. And you can learn a lot by going into an old folks home and going and asking people, hey, do you have any regrets? And if you do, what are those regrets? And you can learn a lot from people who are a bit more seasoned than you in their 70s, 80s, 90s. You can learn a lot from those people.
And that's exactly why I've always been more, I feel like, drawn to people that are older than myself and have experienced more because they have much more to teach. And I've always been like a lifelong learner, or I love learning. I love just like
Yeah,
experiencing.
never stop learning.
No, and that's where I think a good trait of being an entrepreneur comes from is you got to be willing to learn. You got to be willing to grow. Like you got to be willing to try things that other people wouldn't try. And that's probably one of the where the 70 to 80-year-olds run into the problem is they didn't have what we have today. Like they didn't have all this
Not even
information, they didn't
close.
have all this knowledge. So it can be overwhelming at certain points. It's like, well, where do I start? Like, what do I do? And that's where like a lot of the failure that I've had is like I was trying to do too many things at once. Like having just one sole focus, one avatar, one product or service, and then until you reach $1 million is I think the best way to be able to reach that said point. Before, if it's like, okay, I'm going to work over here and I'm going to try and work with weebs and otakus, and then I'm going to work over here and I'm going to try and work with, say, fitness influencers, then I'm going to work over here with, like, let's say, models of some sort. It's like all of
Doing
those
too
can be
much at
successful
once.
businesses, but it's
Yeah.
just like, yeah, I'm doing too much
Pick
at
one.
once.
Pick one,
Yeah.
essentially. Yeah, and that's the thing is like a lot of people try to do way too much at once because they have ADD on, hey, I see this person successful in this person successful in this person successful in this, like wildly successful. So let me try to put my eggs in all different baskets and see which one hits for me. But they fail to realize that to be successful in anything, you kind of have to give your full self to that said field, right? And you have to be able to put in the time and effort. And I don't feel you can truly do that if you're putting all your eggs in like a whole bunch of different baskets and then trying to see what sticks.
I do think at the beginning you should put your eggs in multiple baskets to figure out which one you do want to start to put all your eggs in.
Yeah, yeah. Like, but give yourself a timeline though. Don't like give yourself an indefinite amount of time to do that. Yeah, sure. To kind of, if you don't know what you're doing, you're coming out of college, or even if you're a little bit older and you're not exactly sure what you want to do, sure, you can try out different things, but set that time frame that you're comfortable with. Like, hey, I'm giving myself a year to try all these things, and then boom, I'm gonna go into that one thing.
Exactly, because I think that's where a lot of people have paralysis. At least some of my friends have
Analysis paralysis. It is real.
Right? It is mental masturbation. Like, you're just always going to be thinking about this or analyzing this, and it's just like, just try. Like, that's what I've done ever since like I've started this. Like, Brandon can attest to this. Some of the first videos that I made were terrible. Like, they just weren't great.
Same with me.
But like I had to do those.
My videos are still terrible.
Mine are too. I'm still working on it, trying to figure out what works, because everybody has, like, we all start somewhere. And I think that's the biggest thing that a lot of social media and like content out there nowadays is, we only ever see the finished product. And that's the hard part, because we want to be there overnight when it took them maybe a decade to get to that place.
Yeah, and then like I was just looking at this yesterday. You know, I'm posting on TikTok now more and more, and I only average maybe 300 views per video. I'll have a video pop off now and then. Like, I just had one do 10,000 views recently that I shared with you, and I go ahead and I see these other people. Like, I saw this one woman who did charcuterie boards. She shows you step by step how she makes these extravagant charcuterie boards, and she's getting, I don't know, like 50,000 likes on the video, let alone the hundreds and hundreds of thousands of views. I'm like, what is she doing that's like so different, right? And then I go back and I scrolled all the way back. She started 4 years ago doing this. And here I am, only maybe 2 weeks into actually trying to make something of TikTok, and I'm unhappy with, having some videos that hit 10,000 views and then averaging about 300. Like, who am I, like, to think that I can compare myself to this girl who's been dedicating a lot of her time and effort for over 4 years, and I just started 2 weeks ago? Like, that's like the flawed mindset that we have as humans and you have to kind of, like, I had to step back and be like, hey, why would I ever compare myself to this person who's put so much time and dedication into her channel? It doesn't make any sense.
No, and we always seem to do that. I've done that myself. It's like, Mr. Beast is at 100 million views, or like Iraq, like he was able to get hundreds of millions of views as well within a year. And we don't see all the failed attempts or the failed work that they did beforehand.
Yeah, and that's an extreme example, Mr. Beast, because he's like the king of YouTube. Obviously, that's like the most extreme with PewDiePie and like all those people. But even like knocking it down like way like a ton of rungs just to people who are getting hundreds of thousands of views, not hundreds of millions of views on videos. Just like trying to compare yourself to that is even crazy if you're just starting out.
And that's where like I kind of shifted my mindset when it was getting started out with views. It's like I look at it as, so I'm like, say, standing in a room and I get 100 views on a video. I had 100 people show up to listen to me talk in that room. And I'm like, that's a massive amount of people. And that's something I never really realized at first, because I was too busy comparing myself to the outliers, to the people that have been doing it for half a decade. And it's just like, I can't do that. So now I look at it more of like, okay, this is where I'm at. Yesterday, let's say I got 15 views on a video or something like that. It's like, that's 15 more than I had beforehand. Then the next day I get 100 views. Like, I think the last video that the last podcast that you and I did is at like 90 views right now. So I'm like, we've had 90 people listen to that podcast, which I'm like, that's awesome. So like seeing those small little things is really kind of, it makes me want to do more. It makes me want to push a little bit further. And that's why I think you were reading a book where it was like tracking or something like that, or traction, where it's talking about measuring traction.
Yeah, measuring your business and like putting processes in place, and honestly measuring everything, but also not measuring everything, but measuring the stuff that matters most to your business.
And measuring can apply to content, that can apply to TikTok, YouTube, like being able to see like where we were at beforehand and being like, oh, wow, I made a 2% increase, and maybe percentages don't work, so maybe instead it's like, oh, I got 10 more views than the last video, and then trying to figure out like, well, what worked within this video? Like, why did people click on it? Was it because of the intro? Was it because of the graphics? Was it because of the information that was being said? And a lot of the time, like when it comes down to content, or when it comes down to like mindset, or when it comes down to doing really anything, I think it's a matter of making things different, making something that somebody hasn't heard.
Yeah,
it can have already been said.
You. Yeah, unique to you.
Because, we all have our own individual, unique experiences. So like what I've
For sure.
experienced is completely different from what Brandon has experienced. We can go to the exact same event, or we could go to the exact same place and walk away with two completely different
We get
outlooks.
way different value out of it, which is not a bad thing. And especially if you collaborate with other people, it's the best of both worlds, because maybe you heard something that I didn't hear, right? Because I was too busy taking notes on something else, or maybe something clicked for me that didn't click for you. And being able to kind of share those experiences are really what makes things work.
That's why I think you always got to be learning. You always got to be reading the books. You always got to be trying something or just experiencing what somebody else is already doing within your said field. Like you could listen to that same talk, that same person for decades, but then you have this one other person that comes in and says the exact same thing in just a slightly different way, and then that's the thing that
It's like
resonates
boom,
within
it
your
clicks
mind.
for you just because that person said it in that way. Or maybe right now you are more receptive to hearing that message than you would have been from the other person, in the past that said almost the same thing.
Because maybe in the past you weren't at the place, like you didn't have the information, you didn't have the experience, you hadn't gone through the things that you needed to go through to be able to get you to that place. But that
Correct.
first
Yeah.
conversation that you had planted that seed that we were talking about originally that started to grow, and now that seed's
Hmm.
been growing and you've been watering it every single day, and now it's starting to sprout into a giant oak tree. So it's like
Hmm.
it's a cool perspective of listening to what other people are saying, implementing it, asking those questions, and figuring out what they've been able to do that have been able to make them successful. And a lot of it, I think,
Exactly.
comes down to the mind and having that belief within yourself. Like there's
Yeah.
multiple
And
books that go ahead.
well, as I was gonna say, I want to make sure that we touch on, like, hey, people who are just starting out or thinking about quitting their 9 to 5, just starting out in their company that haven't quite made the leap yet. Maybe sharing some experiences of, hey, what did your family think? What did your friends think? Were you 100% ready to do it, right? So for me, I knew, because I took so long, over 4 years to actually get to this point where, hey, my business is making money. Hey, I think that I can 10x this if I just leave my 9 to 5 and go ahead and spend most of my time during the day on this business. So I was ready personally for me. And I knew that, like, hey, boom, it was a no brainer for me to do it. Not everyone will be in that place. If we go to friends, my friends were really supportive, to be honest, you being one of them. No friends were like, hey, you shouldn't, just probably because they know that I'm pretty financially responsible. So I don't think anyone's really worried about me in that aspect, because I think most people, I'm pretty open with my finances. So I think most people knew I could, easily do it. And then if we get to, so me personally, friends being open to it, and then family, right? That's like the I think one of the biggest things, besides yourself, that holds people back is like, hey, what is my family going to think? Here I'm, there's some people who might be making 150,000 a year, and they're like, I want to go and start a candle business, and their parents might not be receptive to that. My parents were kind of hesitant with it. They're like, you're doing well in your 9 to 5. You have your 401k you're contributing to. You have your health insurance, and you're getting your employer match and all that. Why would you throw that away to then go ahead and work on your business? Like, you're doing a good job just doing that on the side, while you're working your 9 to 5. And some people just don't understand that focus time on an area that can produce a way better result, in my case, income, is a no-brainer. But if you don't have that capacity or knowledge to know that, hey, if you're laser focused, if you quit putting time over here and just simply move that time over here, this is going to get you way better results than working a 9 to 5 and putting time into that. So I had to sort of explain that to certain family members that, hey, it's, even though you might not think that it makes sense to do this, it makes total sense. And I hear you, but at the same time, I really, in a nice way, don't care what you think, because you don't fully understand.
Yeah, I look at that because it's like I need me more than you need me type of thing. like me is the one person that I'm going to be with for the rest of my life. So like you can think that me going off and doing this other job or chasing my business might not be the smartest thing to do. Like me not having any clients or income coming in. Some of my friends, family, they're like, you should probably get something. And I'm just like, I'll figure it out. Like I always do. Like I always just start walking. And as I start walking, I find that progression, because I think we all have that voice in the back of our head that isn't always ours. Is somebody's that's presenting a specific image to ourselves that they think that we should be. And most of the time it's the person that's closest to us, which is the sad part. Because it's like my parents, like they support me. Both of them do. And at the same time, they're like, is this really the smartest thing? Because like they want me to be safe. They want me to be secure. Like they want me to have those types of like options.
As parents do, which is not a bad thing. As parents do.
No. And I think a lot of parents can hold kids back or hold people back on their journey, because the kids, a lot of parents like that I've heard is like Asian parents will usually want their kids to be doctors. Other parents will like want their kids to go to medical school or do blue collar work, or we always seem to follow
or be a lawyer or be this and that, right? Because maybe that's what other people in the family have done and been successful at. And I think parents who are successful business owners themselves are way more, like encouraging on someone starting their business, because they know, like, yes, it's going to be hard work, but ultimately you're probably going to be more fulfilled and you're probably going to make a lot more money if you go out on your own. I didn't have that luxury of my parents having any sort of business knowledge at all. So I understand where they're coming from. And I mean, you're one of your parents owns a business, so they understand that a little bit more, but that doesn't mean that they're still like, hey, supportive of you, right?
Yeah, like I was at lunch with my dad the other day with one of his friends, and he makes like $3 to $6 million a year doing real estate essentially. And I told him how it was like I left my company to be able to go start my own business. And my dad was like, yeah, and he just got like a $15,000 raise, and he's like, he doesn't want that. And the guy that was making $6 million on his own was like, if you're not happy, you're not happy. And he did the exact same thing. And he was doing, I believe, some sort of like car manufacturing business where like he was cleaning cars, working at a factory, and he just quit as well too. He's like, I'm done. He had nothing laid out, no plan whatsoever. And then about a week later, he had his first client, and he was making money again. So it's like him being in his position, like me, I would rather listen to that guy that's making the type of money and doing the types of things that I want to do, compared to say somebody that isn't, somebody that's like working at McDonald's or somebody that's working like, and there's nothing wrong with that, but it's just like, I'm not going to listen to what you have to say when it comes down to me like pursuing.
Yeah, and I had some of the same experience. I was at my in-laws' house and they had a neighbor over. Same thing, in commercial real estate, does very well for himself, and he had no problem with it. He said, Brandon, when you know, you'll know. Like in so few words, when you know, you'll figure it out. And honestly, I don't talk to as many people who are as successful as him that own their own business. So I was kind of taken aback by hearing that someone that knows me but doesn't know me like super well, but was so supportive right off the bat, right? And that just goes to show you that super successful people who are entrepreneurs themselves are way more supportive of those going out on their own than the traditional 9-to-5ers that are going to be most people that you're going to talk to and run into in your life.
Yeah, because those people, they get it. They understand like, hey, I was able to do this, so that means that you can do it as well too.
Of course.
Those typical 9-to-5ers,
they know it's possible, right? They have the belief and they totally know it's possible. Whereas so many people don't have the belief. So that's why they think, oh my God, there's so much risk here. Why would you do that? Why would you throw away that $15,000 a year raise? Why would you do that? Whereas someone who's super successful would be like, it's $15,000 a year broken down monthly, and after taxes, you're maybe going to see $700 of that a month per pay period, $350 per pay period. Big whoop. So you're keeping that $15,000 a year from holding you back from making, let's just play small game here, $15,000 more per month, right? That $15,000 per year, after all that is in tax and stuff, is keeping you back from making $15,000 plus more per month or per day, right?
Yep.
So
And that's why I like the marshmallow experiment, where it's like there's these kids that they had the option to choose that one marshmallow right then, or wait 15 to 20 minutes for that experimenter to come back in, and then they get two marshmallows.
multiple, yeah.
I look at it the same way, where it's like the $15,000, for sure, $350 a pay period, extra $700 a month. That's not going to be life changing.
No. And is that worth keeping you from going ahead and being way more happy and making potentially way more money somewhere else, right? Is that really worth it? That $350 more per pay period. You really have to break it down.
Yeah, and I think there's like you can look at that in two ways, where it's like, is the more money going to make you more happy? Like, because like me leaving and doing my own thing has made me tremendously more happy
Oh, yeah. Same
than that
here.
$15,000. So like the
Yeah.
$15,000, like, yeah, that's great. I just have told myself, I'm like, no amount of money is worth my mental health. So like, if I'm having
True.
to give up my dreams and my aspirations, and I have to quiet myself down to make other people feel comfortable in said company, that's not a place that I want to work. That's not a place that I want to be. So it's like me leaving, it was a no-brainer for me. But not everybody has, like, other people have kids, they have families, they have relationships, they have other obligations that they have to
Responsibilities.
take care
Yeah.
of.
And it's harder. And that's why, you being so young and me being so young, my whole thing was, if not now, when? And that's like a powerful statement. And I just like randomly like thought that up, like, if not now, when? I've set myself up to be in this position where, financially I'm covered. I got all this, my business is cash flowing pretty well. I can pay myself, right? So if not now, when? Am I going to wait until I have, multiple kids, or I have a really high mortgage, or like, am I going to wait till then to do it? No, do it right now when your expenses are so low, you're in a good place, and then it was a no brainer. But for people to get to that point, maybe not everyone's going to be able to have that light bulb moment, right? Where like, if not now, when? Right? So, some people might not have that light bulb moment. So getting to a place where you're like, hey, right now is the best time to do this. Like, to be able to get to that place, it's going to be a different time period for everyone.
Yeah, and it can happen in your 20s, it can happen in your 30s. Like, I feel like Colonel Sanders, the creator of...
Yeah, that's the big one. He was in like his 60s or 70s when he started KFC. And there's been a whole bunch of people who are successful later on in life.
Yeah, Jordan Peterson is another one that comes to mind. It's like the age doesn't necessarily matter. Like, if you want it and you roll the dice enough, you are going to get the numbers that you want. Like, it's a karmic effect as well. It's like, if you just show up every single day, like, eventually you will get to the place that you want to get to. And I think too often a lot of us would stop before getting to that final destination. Like, when I was on my run just the other day, it was like I was out there and I was running and I was like, oh, I know how much further I can go. Like, I can just take a break. Like, I can walk. I can slow down. And then I was like, you know what? No. Like, I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep running. I'm going to make it to my destination because I know how close I am. And too often I think I would stop like within millimeters of like the success that I was looking for. And I'm not doing that any longer. And I think that's where that's where I've failed in the past, is because I have stopped right before I've reached that destination.
Yeah.
And like, you've probably seen the meme where it's like, there's people
that guy who's like digging for
diamond.
gold, right? And he has like his hammer or axe or whatever you want to call it. And he's literally 2 feet from a gold mine. And he stops because he's essentially like, I've gone this far. I haven't gotten the result that I was looking for, which is why I started this journey in the first place. So I'm done. And he was 2 feet from gold. So it's a cliche a bit, but it's really, really true. And it's really apparent that if you set out to do something and you follow through, you give it your all and you don't stop, you're bound to be successful. If you just don't quit and don't stop. And that can be for anything in life.
Exactly. Like, that's where lifting, diets, that's why I've never liked certain words, because diets are temporary. Like, you make a lifestyle change. You want to be a business owner? Like, you're a business owner. Like,
Lifestyle
that's what
change.
you do.
You're going to get up earlier. You're going to, read books. You're going to do this, that. You're going to have a totally different lifestyle than that person that you were. And maybe you were the person that was playing the video games or watching Netflix and movies all the time after your 9 to 5, right? So you truly have to become a different person to really become a totally different person.
And you might be thinking like, well, how do I start to become a different person? And it starts by reading that first book, or not watching TV as long as you want to, or not being on your phone first thing in the morning. Like, it doesn't have to be this big thing. Like, I can look at like brushing my teeth. Like, if I brush my teeth and I want to floss, I'll stack flossing after I brush my teeth. So like, if you want to say get in shape, like maybe you're watching anime all the time, or you're watching movies too often. After like the movie's over or the show's over, do 10 push-ups, do 15 push-ups, like do something that will add on to it.
There's a book, Atomic Habits, that, hey, you're probably going to pull it out of your shelf here. This is perfect for literally.
This is another one. Yeah.
Yeah, another habit book. And Atomic Habits is another one. You can go on Amazon and look it up, or the book you have. It's about making little changes over time that really amount to massive change and growth and success. So I think that anyone who's just starting out that wants to build a different life or in a better life, go ahead and read Atomic Habits and just see how making little changes and stacking habits on top of each other can get you to massive growth.
Yeah, I think that's actually probably the perfect spot for us to end it right there, because habits that'll be the key for you being able to get to that next spot. Being able to start your business, being able to get to the place that you need to get to. Do something that's just going to stack on top of a habit that you're already doing. As you do that, like, you'll start to become more confident. You'll start to become more aware of what you do want in life. And then you'll start to have the right mindset to leave your job, start your own business, and do what you truly want to do with your life. So I appreciate having you on here, Brandon. Exactly. Yes. You got anything else that you want to add, or anything else that you want them to take away?
That's it. I mean, there's so much to talk about. We just skimmed the surface, but the point is, I think if you want to change, you can change, but you have to make the mental shift of actively changing who you are, changing your identity to get to where you want to go.
Yeah, and we'll talk about this more, you guys. So if you want to hear more about this, just follow us or drop a subscribe, and we'll see you guys in the next episode.
Yeah.
Thanks for being
here. See you, Caleb. Bye.
See ya.